Hey there, thank you so much for joining me today on our mini pumpkin arrangement. Now this tutorial today is purely a little bit of fun to create a gorgeous little gift arrangement, or maybe it's something that you might even be able to offer retail in your beautiful flower shop. In today's tutorial, we'll of course start by taking a look at the sundry materials, then we'll move through to the flowers, and then I'll take you through this super gorgeous, super simple, super seasonal step by step. Alright, let's dive in. For our materials today, we are going to be starting off with a beautiful mini pumpkin. As you can see here, we're going to be using a little slice of agri-wool, of course entirely sustainable, and an eco-friendly food bag or wrap bag to contain our agri-wool within. For our floral materials today, we've got a beautiful collection of things to work with. We have a beautiful Vienna copper chrysanthemum, some amaranthus, some scabious seed heads, some helenium, some gorgeous little cotinus at the back, we have some panicum, and a Fifth Avenue rose. All of these beautiful materials we'll be using in our piece today. For our very first step, I need you to get a little messy and to hollow out your mini pumpkin. To do this, take a sharp floral knife, create a circle or circular shape on the very top of the pumpkin, cut through the crust, remove the top, and then using a spoon, scoop out the center so you have something that looks a little bit like this, the perfect seasonal receptacle for our materials. I'm then going to take a small piece of agri-wool, which I've trimmed down to size. I've soaked it as well, so it's full of water, and I'm just going to place it inside my eco food bag or fully compostable food bag, just like so. I'm just going to wrap this round to create a nice little sheath around the outside of the agri-wool, and then I'm going to pop that directly into my pumpkin, just like so. Super simple, super sustainable, super environmentally friendly, and ain't that just it. This cute little pumpkin then is the base or the mechanics required for the next step of our design. For our next step, we're going to start by taking one stem of one of my favorite chrysanthemums, the beautiful Vienna copper. I'm going to trim this stem pretty short, maybe around 2 inches long, remove all foliage and side shoots from the stem, and then just simply insert it directly into the agri-wool so it lies pretty much flush to the very top of our pumpkin. From there, we're ready to move on to step number 3. For step 3, we are going to add a little bit of secondary flower into this. I have one of my favorite sweet little roses. This particularly gorgeous lilac hued beauty is called Fifth Avenue. It's quite a small rose, but that's fine. We can use it in different ways to how we might use some of the larger roses. Again, I'm going to trim these super short as well, maybe an inch or 2 on the stem, remove all the foliage and any other, side shoots or bits and pieces, and I'm going to cluster these in 2 groupings across the top of a pumpkin. We're going to have one grouping at the very front and one at the back too, just to create that nice little connection to draw the eye across our composition. I'm then going to add in some scabious seed heads or scabious seed pods, which are, available in abundance at this time of year, and I'm really just going to work those through the design as well. Now, I'm not going to pop those too low down into the design. I'm going to bring those out a little so they add a little bit of texture and start to kind of fill a little bit more space. I think it's important that when we're working with smaller containers or smaller pumpkins, for example, we really want to be sure that we're kind of bringing the material through the design. We're not necessarily kind of keeping everything tight within. We're kind of bringing it out, filling some of that negative space, as it really just gives us more room to play with, which I think helps to make a more successful, more interesting floral design. For my next secondary flower, I'm going to be working in a little bit of this fantastic amaranthus. Now, hanging amaranthus is in abundance in October and September here in the UK. It is one of the harbingers of texture, in my opinion. There's just so much you can do with it, and I think the coloring works particularly well with the beautiful Vienna copper chrysanthemum that we're using. It also connects really nicely to the scabiosa. I'm just going to place 2 stems of this through. Again, the stems are really short, all the foliage removed from it, trimmed on an angle, and inserted directly into the agri-wool, giving us something that looks a little bit like this. To add some flavor into our design, we are going to next add in some beautiful bolder floral elements just to act as our fantastic tertiary materials. I've got some incredible cotinus, I have some panicum, I have some gorgeous helenium, all of which I'm going to dot through the composition that you can see here just to bring it to life a little bit. Now with the cotinus, I've taken this really short and I've only used the very top of the actual foliage that you can see right there, nestled next to the fantastic little Fifth Avenue rose. And I'm going to do something similar with the panicum as well. I don't need a big, huge full stem, so I'm just going to break off a couple of the lower pieces and then trim them on an angle at the bottom and then place them directly into the pumpkin. Again, we have the same here with the Helenium, one of my favorite autumnal blooms. I've trimmed it super short, an inch or two long, removed all the foliage from it, and then I'm just going to dot them over the top of the bouquet to act as really one of the focal flowers in this design. They'll be so bold and right at the very top, even though they're quite a small material. By the time the composition is finished, they'll be acting as one of the focal flowers in this piece, which is pretty cool. It's now time to titivate, add in some smaller details if we want to, make sure we can't see any aggro wool there to make sure all our mechanics are covered, and then we can top up with a little bit of water. Not too much, because too much water will, not help our pumpkin last too long, but a little bit just to help our flowers will do the trick. And voila, just like the magic of spooky season, here we have a fantastic little floral pumpkin. Now, personally, I think these mini pumpkins are super, super cute. I mean, this isn't a hugely complicated floral design, it's just a nice little bit of fun, which I thought was perfect to share with you at this time of the year. There's nothing quite like celebrating spooky season than with floral pumpkins, in my opinion. Now, let's just talk through a few different aspects of this design before we wrap up. From a sustainability point of view, this particular design is quite the home run. We've got a completely organic pumpkin vase, or container if you will. We've then used agrowool and an eco food bag, which is ticking all of our boxes to make sure that when this design fades, there'll be pretty much nothing left. All of our floral materials are seasonal as well. You of course, as ever, do not need to replicate this design exactly as I have done, but you can use whatever materials you have to hand in your garden or from your local farmers before the first frost hits. From my perspective, you could use this beautifully with dahlia maybe, you could use this with the last of the zinnia that you have out. Whatever materials that you have to hand can really be placed together in this gorgeous mini design to create something that is incredibly cute. From a retail point of view, this design won't last too long. It's definitely a design maybe that you want to have maybe one or two out on the counter in your store to show people what's possible, but maybe it's not really something that you want to make a ton of and have them kind of ready to go in the shop, because they might not shift before, they kind of start to go a little bit off. I find that pumpkins, once carved, last about 5 days in total, but of course it does depend where you are, temperature, how they're kept, all the rest of it. I mean, one thing you could do is make up these in advance ahead of Halloween or November, and of course then you can keep them in a cooler, which will of course extend the vase life or flower life of this particular composition. If you were making these for an event, I think that is a little bit cooler and a little bit sexier. You could do a run of these along a long table or cluster them on a round table, maybe do some larger pumpkins as well. The technique would very much remain the same. We start, of course, by hollowing out our pumpkin, we then fill it with agrowool, and we wrap that in an eco-friendly plastic. What that does really is it helps prevent the water from leaking into the pumpkin, stops it rotting through, and it just kind of separates the floral material from the organic material of the pumpkin. So it just helps the whole thing last a little bit longer. That's why we use the eco food bags as we have done in this particular design. Now, this design overall is not particularly complicated. It's not going to take you forever to do. It's a super simple, sweet little bonus to the season, I think. I mean, we can be incredibly versatile with the materials that we use. We can be incredibly versatile with the pumpkins that we use, all different sizes and shapes. The technique is pretty easy to replicate across a ton of different materials. So hopefully it's a cute little idea to keep in your back pocket should you have any weddings or events that you want to do at this time of year, or maybe it's a cute little something to have at home or to gift to friends and family. As ever guys, thank you so much for joining us on today's flower class tutorial. I hope this idea is perfect for you to dive in to something quite gorgeous and quite special to celebrate the seasons at this time of year. If you have any questions whatsoever, please do drop them below and my team and I will get back to you as soon as we can. Or of course, please do feel free to drop a comment in our flower class community and we will pick it up there. As ever, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial and I will look forward to seeing you on the very next one. Take care and enjoy spooky season. Speak soon. Bye.